Hi everyone, it is time for our Wednesday reflection on our social principles. We've been looking at some social principles from the United Methodist Church about how we care for our earth. If you're not familiar with the social principles, you can find a description of them in Monday's video. But let me take a second to just refresh us on our 4 questions for the day. The first is, after hearing the stance, to what extent do you agree or disagree with it? The second, where do you see in Scripture, in our hymnal, in our church tradition, support for this principle? Third, where do you see our church living into this principle? And lastly, how could we do better? Okay, so today our principle has to do with space, which feels exciting to me. These were written in 2016, and if you've followed the news this year, I feel like there's been a lot of activity around space. So let's hear what it has to say. The universe, known and unknown, is the creation of God and is due the respect we are called to give the earth. We therefore reject any nation's efforts to weaponize space and urge that all nations pursue the peaceful and collaborative development of space technologies and of outer space itself. Cool. So think about where you fall on this stance. What do you think we should be doing? Is it appropriate to have weapons out in space? Is space ours to go explore as we please? What do you think? Like yesterday's principle on global climate change, today's is not necessarily one you're gonna look in the Bible index and find spaceships or aliens or other terms you might associate. NASA, right? Those aren't in there. So what do we look to understand who God is and what that means for our understanding of space? One thing that comes to mind for me is also inspired by current events, this idea of the star that the wise men saw in the sky, right? That in other traditions and other faith traditions, astrology has a lot of importance. And maybe not so much in Christianity, but there is elements where God's people did look into the sky and know God was present based on the stars. So where do we see our church living into this principle? That's a really good question. I don't know that something comes to mind immediately for me, and I'm curious if something comes to mind for you. Does the church have a role in space exploration? Should we be advocating for Space Force, NASA, who else is involved in space programs, right? To have a certain ethic around their work, or to continue a certain ethic around their work. So in regards to our last question, how could we do better, right? I couldn't really think of anything. What are you thinking of? And then, right, the word better is subjective as to, how important is this principle to us? Do we have a real fear of people weaponizing space? And what is our role as Christians to respond to that? I hope that you will join me tomorrow. Thursday, our principle will be around food justice. Thanks all. Have a great day.